Well, let me say that in going to court, this is in keeping with democratic practice. Whenever there is an election and a party feels that they are not satisfied with the rulings of a court, they have an opportunity to go on appeal and to present their case at a higher court so that they can be able to get justice. So for me, I don't think it's a matter to discuss. Going to court is a normal process as the Constitution and the laws of the land have allowed that, and it is in order. Now, the issue of certificates has a very important significance. I don't know how much we are ready to look at this issue, because a lot of the discussions I have listened to or I've read about tend to be very superficial. Let me say three things very quickly. One, the fact that we are arguing about certificates speaks to the quality of the people we have, or lack of it, as it were, in politics. We should be able at this level to have people whose records are so very straight that you do not need to get engaged in this. There are bigger issues that should engage this country. I've tried always to make this point, that this country already has 20 million children out of formal school system. God knows the number of people that have finished school and they cannot find jobs. We have a country of 220 million people today, but in another just 7 years down the line, we're going to grow up to 300 million. In 2050, which is not too far away, we have young people. In 25 years or thereabouts, we expect this country to be well over 400 million in population, which will make it the third country after India and China. What I expect politicians to be discussing, how do you provide the infrastructure for this population? How do you provide food? How do you provide education, healthcare, jobs? Because that is what is going to make the country great. That's what's going to make the country stable. That's what's going to make the country peaceful. If you can't, you are going to go into the kind of conflict that we are beginning to see, or that we have seen for the last 1 decade or so. So the point is, it's very sad. It's a very sad commentary that our politicians are, or the kind of people that we have in politics that eventually, get into positions of power, are people whose qualifications are doubted. Now that speaks a lot of volumes about the fact that of the quality of leadership we're going to get. The second point is that when it comes to, if you like, the political culture that we run has somehow accepted these things as norm. Because I would expect that the party itself should have done sufficient screening in its candidate before they even get to the point of being contesting for election.
Oh, one will also imagine that these names are submitted to INEC. Does INEC do a check?
Okay.
Does the party
I'm coming to INEC
in the first place?
I'm coming to INEC, but before they even go to INEC, they come through a political party. And a political party should have values. If they have values of integrity, then that name could not have come through.
Political parties screen their candidates. So you wonder what exactly did they do when
we do that. I was secretary of a political party, as you might remember. And we have to go through that for every election. And so it means that is the failure of the party. And then we come to INEC, which is even independent. Even if the party decides to be selfish, if that's the word to use, at least the INEC being an independent, I emphasize the independence there. They should be able to carry out a due diligence and confirm, check and recheck. And so you can see the failure of the institution at the party level, the failure of the institution at INEC level, and this speaks to our political culture. And I'm saddened that we have a political culture that literally allows this rubbish to come through. The third and important point.
Just remember, before you got to the third point. So if we have a political culture that is dented, and is hogwash. So you're not surprised that we are getting the kind of leadership that we get, not only at the presidential level, but also at across the state and the local government.
Yes. Now, the other point I want to make, we're in the 21st century. Countries are, the 21st century is a very competitive century. And if we are going to survive and thrive as a nation, we have to compete. And the competitive age that you get, the most important is knowledge. Now, if you have a system that does not prioritize knowledge, does not prioritize integrity, how can you compete? So how can we survive as a nation? How can we thrive as a nation? Look at other countries that have made progress. I mean, in the last 30 years, or even in the last decade, if you look at the countries that have made progress, they are countries that have gotten these things right because they are basic, they are fundamental to any polity. Any polity that does not prioritize knowledge, does not have integrity, does not have institutions that are working and functioning and doing their jobs, is not going to simply survive. And we are already getting there. We are already at some kind of precipice. So because we are struggling.